Forward. The purpose of this book is stated in Isaiah 32:2. And a man shall be as a hiding place from the wind, and a covert from the tempest, as streams of water in a dry place, as the shadow of a great rock in a weary land. There is nothing in this book that is worth reading unless you are ready and willing to make it your own. Anyone who will transmute the substance and translate the ideas of the spiritual technique into action will find the coveted prize in a new body, new circumstance, increased wealth, infinite peace, wholeness, completion, and spiritual power. The various studies in this book are patterns or designs for more successful living. They can be effective only as they are made articulate in the individual mind, only as we particularize them in thought, word, and act. The material presented in these pages is true, scientific, and pragmatic. Truth will grow up in us only as it is completely integrated with the soul and spirit. To retain these truths in the intellectual mind only is like the child who becomes so enamored with pictures of the garden seed containers that he forgets to plant the seeds. Before they can grow, they must be integrated with the cold, damp earth. There is an escape for the man who sincerely desires it. But it is not in yon mountains nor in Jerusalem. It is not in any personality or system of philosophy or religion, but wholly within him, in self-forgetfulness and divine stillness. The only individuals necessary to us in this quest are those who have found God themselves. They are the only ones who have anything to contribute to our spiritual welfare. A word to the student. Once a Persian philosopher came to a missionary and offered to pay him to read the Bible for an hour each day and translate to him as he read. The offer was gladly accepted, and the missionary read from the Bible for 1 hour. Finally he came to the passage, "Even so the tongue is a little member and boasted great things, but the tongue can no man tame." At which the philosopher rose abruptly and said, "That will be enough for the day." He did not return for 3 months. The missionary expressed surprise that he had not returned sooner. "I thought you wanted me to read to you every day." "Well, I did," replied the other, "but it took me this long to get that much." I am going to ask you to turn to the following pages of this book with the same earnestness of spirit and the same tenacity of purpose as the Persian philosopher. Read one lesson at a time and do not proceed to the next until you get that much. Come to each lesson like an athlete stripped for action. As you turn these pages, you are not reading a book, but traveling up a mountain. You cannot read this book through at one sitting and get what it really contains. You will miss the greatest, the most precious part of it, which is the growing part. I have written the smaller half. You are to write the larger half. If you will give this study 1 hour a day of patient, honest, steady journeying, and if you'll consent for 1 month to abide patiently by the directions which have been written down in the Spirit and under the guidance of prayer, you will some day reach the mountaintop, and when you do, you will have found the greatest gift that God can give to man, the gift of God himself. Make the counsel of thy heart to stand, for there is none more faithful to thee than it. For a man's soul is sometimes wont to bring him tidings, more than 7 watchmen that sit on high on the watchtower. David said, "Commune with your own heart, in your chamber, and be still." Sentence lessons for weekly contemplation and study. Study to show thyself approved unto God, a workman that needeth not be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. 2 Timothy 2:15. Author's note. The sectional messages in this book are a departure from the usual form of inspirational and metaphysical text. They were purposely printed in this form to keep the student from reading them as he would a narrative, a novel, or some other book. The salient and vital truths here presented are for consumption and not for superficial perusal or intellectual review. To become operative in us, they must be mastered and not read. We must not only read them, but mark, learn, and inwardly digest them. In short, we must live with them and in them until they form in us a consciousness of themselves. Only then can they dwell with us. And the Word became flesh and dwelt among us.